Good day, Frank Casale here, welcoming you to episode 7 of The Transaction. This episode is entitled D-Day, as in Decision Day, as in time to make a decision, folks. After viewing this episode for the very first time, I could not help but think of the advice I received from my dad, the great Lou Casale, many years ago when I was in college. He said to me, "Son, business is about finance, not about romance," meaning it's all about the bottom line. Well, it became apparent to me, after viewing this segment, that it's really both finance and romance impacting most business decisions. So, beyond pricing, it's things like chemistry and overall compatibility that determines who gets selected. Important point of note for those of you who are currently in the early stages of an outsourcing engagement. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention prior to you viewing this episode. As you may recall, the original strategy here was to select one individual provider that would handle both contract labor and recruitment process outsourcing. It's been since determined that it'd be in the best interest of Kodak to determine actually two providers, one for contract labor and one for the recruitment process outsourcing. Ultimately, Adecco had been selected for the contract labor segment of this outsourcing engagement. So congratulations to Team Adecco. Great job. So what is left here is the recruitment process outsourcing portion of this business. We're down to two worthy finalists. Who is it that checks off all the boxes, both in the finance category and the romance category? See for yourself in this very interesting episode. Enjoy.
Now that we've gone through our decision process on the contract labor side of the business, we're going to divide out the RPO side, and we're going to focus in on some of the key suppliers that we still have.
What is our next strategy? Do we want to select one, or do we want to go down to two?
Looking at the scoring that we've gone through to this point, there's clearly two companies that are leading, and knowing how close they are, I guess my suggestion would be that you down select the two, Betty. Once you have it down to two, evaluate those two on doing some site visits and understanding a lot of the intangibles around working with them. At that point, you should be in a position to make a selection to start negotiating your price, you negotiate your metrics, and once that's done, finalize your terms and conditions, and you'll have a contract in place.
Okay, team, today's D-Day. We've covered a tremendous amount of territory in a short amount of time. We've started out with about 50 some odd service providers, worked our way down to 7, and now we're down to 2. We have to walk out of this room with 1. Larry has an agenda. It's an aggressive agenda. So, Larry, why don't we just get started?
And in the spirit of acceleration, I kept the agenda very short because I don't think there's a whole lot that we need to go through today. The due diligence. How did it go? Do you want to start with provider number 1?
Well, why don't we start with provider 2, because that's where we went first. I think it'll just be more logical. What we wanted to do was get a sense of the environment, how they do the work. We wanted to meet the people that would be on our account. And then we also walked through their solution in a more detailed level than we have in the past.
We have the chance to interact with many people in the organization. We could find a very I would say, a smart, intelligent group of people, very motivated. You can feel that
They were happy.
motivation,
Their
their
employees
passion.
were happy.
They were motivated, they were happy, which was very good. Nothing very fancy, but very, very appropriate, I will say.
Professional.
Professional, yes, yes.
When we walked into the main lobby, now we're getting into the slickness part, your favorite topic. They had one of these screens, the plasma screens, up in the lobby, and they had quotes of us. I think you were even quoted, Bill.
Yes.
Yeah. Of, here are the things that we've said throughout this whole RFP process, right?
Yeah.
So, I said something like, at the end of the day, we're looking for the right talent. And then they said Betty Petro, right, at the bottom. And to us, it was slick, don't get me wrong, but it demonstrated that they've been listening.
I wouldn't take that as slick. I would take that as very important.
Yeah.
Customer focused.
Yeah.
That was actually a good marketing tool.
How much time did you spend there?
Half a day, 6 hours.
We could have stayed longer because we really, time went very, very fast.
And we were engaged. We were,
Yes, it was good.
discussing things, and they got right in there, and it was very interactive and back and forth.
Once you made it clear to them that you wanted to get on site and see them, how much of a logistical challenge was that?
As I was waiting, I got a call from the CEO. Just want to make sure you're on your way. If there's any issue, this and that, I'll come and pick you up. Once we got there, had another message on my phone. Just want to make sure you got in. No issues if you need anything. Here's my home number. Picked us up in a limo, took us to the hotel. The next morning, they also picked us up, took us to the office building. So logistically, it was very easy. We didn't have to worry about a thing. They took care of that.
So were there any negatives on the trip?
I think that when we were talking about the solution, some of the IT pieces were probably not too well defined. So how will you make this type of connections?
I was expecting more deep dive on the how, and they didn't do it. This area that we went to was a little bit more remote in terms of the location. We rented a car. We had to drive about 15 minutes out to find the place, and ended up getting lost. We figured it out. We got there, and we were greeted by the team there. One difference was we did not meet with the CEO. He was not available that day, so that was kind of a key difference. Facility was very nice, large facility. What else?
How much time did you spend there? About the same amount of time?
About the same amount of time, about a half a day. When we got into the room, they had a team of the account managers. The COO was there with us, as well as some, I don't know, what would you call the other people? Account type?
Yes.
Senior advisor, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what they wanted to do initially in their agenda was spend some time on the sourcing. It was disappointing. They did not have the depth around the sourcing. In fact, they were showing us how to do Google searches. Like searches in Google.
You discussed the sense of the environment and the kind of the vibe for supplier 2. How would you describe that for supplier 1?
It was not as enthusiastic.
It's not that friendly.
You felt really energized with supplier number 2. Didn't really feel that with supplier number 1. But again, very capable, still a solid player.
It's a much bigger, I would say, 10 times bigger operation. So it's a big difference in terms of the size.
We asked them, from all of your customers, where would Kodak be on, from a size-wise, revenue, as well as complexity? And they told us we would be their most complex account. And that, obviously, in terms of revenue, we would be, what that guy got in trouble, remember?
So
He
like
said,
in the middle.
you're not in our top 10 or something
like
like
the
that.
Right.
And then the other guy said, well, every customer is important.
The other guy
That's
almost.
Prestige. He almost yes. He did. He got in trouble. And I'm like, wow. So, that concerned me because we are complex, right? We have so many different businesses, and our jobs are not easy to fill. And given that, and we're not high on their revenue, line, how much attention would we get? They said, oh, so if we wanted to find companies that were like Kodak, and they picked Fuji as our competitor. And, you know, we had an internal conversation after in the car ride. We're like, we don't even consider Fuji our competitor anymore, right? So it just showed the difference between the two suppliers. They don't know us. They didn't take the time to learn about us.
Really?
How about on the upside? What was the most impressive thing for that meeting?
The most impressive.
You guys have had a great trip.
Yeah, it was enlightening. I mean, I can't imagine going through this decision without visiting.
You gotta do it, yeah.
You have, yeah. Well, that was very smart that you did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very smart.
Although it is science that got us here, it's going to be emotion that really decides who wins today.
Now that the due diligence process is over, and considering all the experiences that you've had at both supplier 1 and supplier 2, and where they ranked before going into due diligence, haven't we made a decision?
What I anticipate as a photo finish seems to be a clear winner.
Do you all feel comfortable as a team to say you're prepared right here, right now to say we made a choice?
I think that supplier number 1 has more experience.
Now that Kodak has selected its vendor, the next step is making sure the contract is accurate and has a mechanism for allowing Kodak to manage the deal on a go-forward basis to avoid small problems becoming big problems down the road.
The real work starts now.